Eating holistically is more than just eating healthy food. Hey guys, I'm Tara. Welcome back to my channel. So I talk a lot on here about exercise and keeping the mind healthy, but I don't often talk about eating or food. So I thought we'd talk about this today because it's obviously a super important part of healthy living, and it's also important when living a holistic lifestyle. So today I have 6 tips for you to help you to eat more holistically and healthier. First off, for those who don't know, holistic living is about taking care of your entire being, so taking care of the body, mind, and soul. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the basics because I already have a whole video on this, which I will link below for you guys, or you could find it right here. So the body is one of the parts we need to consider when we're working to live more holistically, and what you eat directly impacts your body. You could work out consistently, but if you eat like crap all the time, your body is not going to be running optimally. The way I like to look at it is food is our body's fuel source. So you wouldn't want to put bad fuel into your car, right? So why would you want to put bad fuel into your body? I think that simple mindset shift could be really impactful in making healthier eating choices. Eating holistically at its core basically means eating foods that feel good for your body, mind, and soul. So think about if you're consistently eating, say, fast food. It probably doesn't feel great for your body, and your mind knows it's unhealthy, so your mind isn't really feeling good about that choice either. On the opposite end, if you eat a balanced meal with, say, a healthy protein, maybe a healthy carb like quinoa, and lots of fresh vegetables, your body probably feels better than when you eat the fast food, and your mind feels good because you made this healthier choice. So that's a simple illustration of that mind-body connection. And that's the core of eating holistically. But we also have to remember that everyone's different. So what feels good for one person might not feel good for another. So when we eat holistically, we need to find what feels good for us while making sure that we're getting our proper nutrients. That's the overview on what holistic eating is all about. So now let's get into the tips to help you put this into action. Tip number 1 is to aim to eat foods in their most natural form. So foods in their most natural form would be like if you went out to your own garden, you picked food from there and ate it directly. That would be the most natural form. Obviously, this isn't realistic for everyone to do, but what you can do is to try your best to avoid heavily processed foods. Processed foods refers to how much manufacturing your food goes through, and it's not really possible to avoid all processed foods, and I wouldn't say all processed foods are bad. To give you an example, say almond flour we'll look at. Almond flour is technically processed because the almonds are ground down into this flour-like consistency, but I wouldn't necessarily call almond flour unhealthy. So it's really more those heavily processed items that you want to try to avoid. That would be like your pre-made frozen meals or pre-packaged snacks, things like that. Again, it's not that you have to avoid these foods 100% of the time, but try to keep it limited if you can. When you do have the option, try to choose foods in their most natural form. An example of an easy way to do this would be, say, if you normally buy vegetables in a canned form or frozen, you could buy them fresh instead. That would be an easy way to start to decrease your intake of processed foods. Tip number 2 is to eat what's in season. Again, like with the processed foods, not everything you eat is going to be in season, but try to think about this when choosing your food. As you may have seen in other videos on my channel already, I think it's super important for all of us to stay connected with the seasons as we're all part of nature. You don't have to go crazy with this, but just try to think about eating foods that are in season in your area. I think this is really a staple of holistic eating. Tip number 3 is to read the ingredients. This is so important. I read the ingredients on literally everything I buy. This may be time consuming at first, but after a while, you'll kind of know which foods are good and which ones you kind of go to buy. I'm not going to go through an entire bad ingredient list, but I'll share a few ingredients that I would avoid and that I particularly look for. One is partially hydrogenated oils, which are basically trans fats. I think that there's more restrictions on this now, and most brands aren't using them anymore, so that's a good thing, but if you do see them in an ingredient list, don't eat that item. Another ingredient I'd avoid would be high fructose corn syrup. That one you may see more commonly, and I would recommend avoiding that one. And lastly, any dyes, like if you see something that says red number 5 or yellow number 3 or something like that, I don't know what that is. It sounds concerning. Those artificial dyes are not good for you, so I would definitely avoid that. I encourage you to do more research on ingredients, But something simple that I could offer you that I do is if I'm reading a label and it has a long list of ingredients and a lot of them I don't recognize, or they sound super strange to me or super chemical based, usually I just won't eat it. But also I encourage you to really look it up and find out what you're eating. Tip number 4 is to think about where your food actually comes from. I think this is an issue for a lot of people, that they just eat without really thinking about exactly what they're actually consuming. So like the last example, eating foods without reading the ingredients would be an example of this, but this also ties into knowing where your food actually comes from. This is important when it comes to your fruits and vegetables, like knowing how and where your food was grown so that you can make the best choice possible when purchasing. But it's especially important when it comes to food that is from animal products. For example, is your seafood wild caught, and was it caught using sustainable methods? What kind of farm are your eggs from? This is important not only for the animals, as you really want to choose places that treat them well, but also for you. A chicken laying eggs in a crammed, filthy place is not only terrible for that chicken, but that egg is also not going to be as healthy for you. And this isn't me telling you to go vegan, it's just me saying to start to think about where your food is coming from. And if you do have the option and luxury to make better choices and buy from a better place, then to do so. Tip number 5 is to be present while you're eating. This is important when thinking about the mind, body, soul part of holistic eating. Instead of eating something for breakfast in 2 minutes right before you run out the door, can you find the time to sit and be present while you eat? This is a really simple mindset shift that can really change your relationship with food. And I know that this one can be a little challenging, and this is something I personally can work on because a lot of times I will multitask while I eat. But if you can find that time to sit and be present and maybe decrease the amount of time that you're multitasking while you're eating your meals, it could really help you in living your more holistic lifestyle. My last tip for you is to find what foods make your body feel the best. This is really the important part of all this because we're all different, and while there's a general consensus on what's healthy and what's not, the rest is really about how you feel. So try to connect with your body and notice how you feel after you eat certain foods. What foods make you feel good, right? Also, I just want to say, because we've been talking so much about eating healthy, to remember that it's okay to eat things that you enjoy that aren't necessarily healthy. It's not about never eating anything bad. It's just about keeping the majority of your diet healthy. So just remember that. There's so much that goes into diet, nutrition, and eating, but I hope this video helped you to maybe change your mindset around eating and that you learned some easy, actionable tips to help you to eat more holistically. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in learning more about holistic living, check out my video on holistic exercise, which you could find right here or in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.